Hey everybody, ChrisLody here again with the second of these episodes looking behind the scenes at the score and sound design work that's going into Bad Things. Bad Things is a horror film that I'm currently working on. If you're not interested in listening to me talking about my thoughts behind the process, feel free to skip forward to the tutorial. I'll put a chapter link below to make that easy for you. So for Bad Things, I've basically been asked to make an experimental score. Anthony, the director, is a big fan of my music and a big fan of experimental electronic music in general. So he didn't really want a score that is like a big orchestral type score because this is a more personal, small scale kind of story involving a small group of people. So when we talk about experimental music in general, that's a pretty big subject. It's an ocean of possibilities, so we've got to narrow it down a bit. Thinking about it in terms of what a horror score should be, that is probably going to mean it's going to be scary. There's going to be elements of the film score that aren't, obviously, but there will be bits that are, supposed to twist the emotions of the viewer. So there's probably going to be strings. So I'm trying not to use strings in a traditional way. There's an element of the plot that involves kind of an imposter in the ranks where the protagonists don't know who they're being attacked by. Also, there's the combination of digital technology and nature. So those two things kind of lead me down the path of maybe making synthesizers sound like strings, and also make strings sound like they're not being played in a normal way through extended techniques. I have available in the studio a cello and violin, and a few other strange string instruments like zithers, piano harps, and guzheng that I can play in odd ways. We'll get some really weird sounds out of them. And then on the electronic side, I'll be using the MicroFreak for doing a lot of the electronic string sounds. So that's what the tutorial will be about. So with these videos I'm hoping to develop a palette of sounds that will go into the score, because you don't really want to have a score that has each individual cue having its own sounds that don't link in together. You really want something that ties them together, something that's a bit more cohesive. So there will be sounds that appear in multiple parts of the score, and we won't really know until we get scoring against the picture whether those elements I'm going to design through these videos will fit. So we'll have to see. But now let's have a look at building those string sounds on the MicroFreak. So let's start with that deep bass sound. I was kind of aiming for cellos. I don't think I really achieved that. It's more of a nondescript sort of low or orchestral sort of sound, maybe a bit brassy, a bit stringy. So I've got one of the initialized patches loaded here, and you'll also hear I've got some reverb on that's added in my DAW because the MicroFreak doesn't have any effects. I'm going to go into type, and we're going to go car plus strong. This is designed to simulate the sound of strings. Lower our octaves down to 2, and that is our note there. I'm going to adjust these a little bit. The bow wants to be 35, and we'll leave this at 0 and this at maximum. And that's kind of getting there already, but I want to add a bit of grit into it, a bit like a sort of very rosiny bow scraping across a string will add a bit of dirt and harmonics in. So I'm going to do that with the LFO. So I'll swipe around to the stepped random. I'm going to turn off sync and then turn the rate all the way up to 100 Hz. So we're going to add this to the pitch to get a bit of randomness. So we use the matrix to do this. Scroll over to LFO to pitch, which is there. Press that, and I'm going to add just 0.5 worth. And there's our dirt. Now to clean it up a little bit, and to give us a bit of expression, I'm going to lower this cutoff down to about halfway. And then we're going to use the matrix again with pressure to cut off, turn that up to 50. So that's sort of 50% is going to be controlled by pressure. So as we roll our finger, it'll open the cutoff. So we're nearly there already, but I did make a few other little tweaks. I just soften the attack ever so slightly, lengthen the decay, and then turn the sustain down to 25. This will mean we can lift the sustain with our expression to create volume changes. So at the moment that's quiet. If we scroll over to the assign one, we can assign that to sustain, and then we can turn that amount up back to 75. So that is going to be 25% here, and then 75% will be controlled by our expression. And that gives us the ability to create shapes in our volume curve for more drama. So now let's turn our attention to that high string sound. It's also going to be using car plus strong. I've selected an initialized patch here again, and then we're going to turn our octaves up by 2. Turn on polyphonic mode, which gets us chords, and then I'm going to change this to car plus strong. And then I want to turn all our adjustments up to 100, which gets us that. But there's no real expression here yet. One of the reasons I bought the MicroFreak was its ability to send polyphonic aftertouch. So I'm going to assign that to pitch. We go over to pressure on the matrix and turn it up to about 3. That's going to enable us to bend individual notes. So if I play 2 notes together and move one, only this one will bend. So it's a bit like having up to 4 different players that can each add their own expression. But if we want to add in that tremolo sort of effect, we're going to do that using the LFO. So if we cycle around to triangle, turn off sync, turn this up to about 5 Hz. Then we're going to send that to the adjustment knobs of the oscillator. So we need to back those off a little bit to give us a bit of room to maneuver them. So if we turn wave down to the bow rather, down to about 30, 31, somewhere around there. That quietens us down quite a lot straight away. Leave a timbre, if that's how it's pronounced, I'm never sure about that, at 100, and then back the shape off to 50-ish. And then we're going to send the LFO to the bow and the, what's that called? Decay. Go to our LFO of the matrix. And then we're going to send it to wave by 15. Just as that. Then we're also going to send it to the shape knob, but we need to assign that. So we're going to assign that to number 1. Hold that, turn that. And then we're going to add in 50% of this. So that's going to move it by the remaining amount with the LFO. So it's already getting pretty close to what we want. But there's a few more things we can do yet. We can change that shape of that LFO by sending the LFO to itself. At the moment we've got a triangle wave, which isn't particularly natural because it's got straight lines in it. We could also choose to use the saw, but that's got instant drops. And the bow can't really move like that. So if we can send the triangle to itself, we can create more of a curved shape. So if we go to assign 2 and set that as rate, we can then send the LFO to itself by about 15 again. And that's going to create a bit more of a natural shape. It will change the speed. So we can turn that up a bit more to compensate for it. But I think that sounds a bit closer to natural sort of movement. Now, as suggested by Undulations, which is a great channel by the way, which you should check out, we're going to use the sustain knob of the cycling envelope as like a macro to control 2 things at once. So I'm going to send it to the LFO speed, also going to send it to the wave amount, so that as we turn that knob up, it's going to change the speed and a little bit of the timbre of the sound. So we do that by going to cycling envelope, and on wave, again, about 15 seems about right. And then if we go over to where we just had our LFO speed assigned, which is assigned 2, we can change that by about 15. So then as we turn this knob up, that's going to change the speed of our LFO. Let's back that speed off a bit. Like that. And then if we, as we're playing, we change the wave knob slightly, we're going to get less staccato notes. So there's an enormous amount of stuff we can do here. There's loads of different variations of this patch you can make to make these great string sounds. So I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial video and the bits of me waffling on about my thought processes. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you found it interesting. Leave comments below. I don't mind if you disagree with the things I've said. I'd like to get a discussion going about it because I find it's a really interesting subject. The way that image and sound are combined as a whole, I find a fascinating subject. So yeah, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks very much.